Welcome to the Love Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon. You may know me from Project Love, where we focus on operational excellence, but here we go deeper. We're your go-to for raw, empowering conversations on entrepreneurship and stepping into your CEO role with love and confidence. Each week, we'll explore everything from mindset shifts, leadership, optimal wellness, to efficient systems, all within a community of visionary women like you. Ready to get real about building a business and life you love? Hit subscribe and let's start this transformative journey together. Hello, loves. We are back for another solo show with yours truly. I'm your host, Jessica, and today I'm reflecting on all that happened in 2023, sharing my lessons, challenges, and accomplishments, in addition to how I'm setting the stage for success in 2024. Now, 2023 was a pivotal year for me in so many ways. It challenged me to my very core, some of which I will go into detail on. Now, I find it hard to reflect on the past year because there's been so much that has happened in all areas of my life. It has been a roller coaster ride of extreme lows and highs that stretched me farther than I was actually comfortable with. The year started with an extremely challenging work situation, which I can't go into too much detail about, but it forced me to do a lot of inner work to navigate the emotions that were triggered. The situation, while extremely frustrating and disheartening and disrespectful, did have a silver lining, which took some time to eventually see. It forced me to look for additional support, and I was fortunate to become aware of RRT through Instagram, surprisingly. Now, while I already had a counselor, which I think is a good thing in general, even when you don't have any specific situations you're struggling to navigate, I needed another tool in my toolbox to deal with this certain situation. RRT has been an absolute game changer for me this past year, and I will continue to swear by it going forwards. It helped me shift my perspective, release blocked emotions, past trauma, and so much more quickly than traditional talk therapy did. And again, I'm an advocate for both forms. They both have their purpose. Now, what I learned from this that made the biggest impact, and it might seem small to some, is that the situation I was in said more about them than it did about me. And I know that's such a simple sentence, but it helped me really navigate that situation and be able to come through it in a different space. I didn't need to try to understand it, which I spent so much time trying to do because it wasn't logical to start with. Now, another phrase that really helped me navigate this and other situations that came is it useful? Meaning that whatever it is I'm experiencing or feeling at the time, if it's not relevant and I need to process and release it. It helped me become very much more aware of my thoughts, and I began being able to shift the narrative more easily and avoid spiraling as frequently. So I found myself hearing the counselor, the therapist in my head, the RRT therapist, hearing what she would say to me if I were saying what I was saying to myself to her. And it was just such a game changer because I was actually able to talk myself out of certain stories or talk myself through emotions or feelings that I was experiencing more easily. Now, another big lesson through this situation was that while I thought corporate was the safe route, it turns out that it isn't. Things can change on a dime when you don't even expect it. And this lie I was telling myself was making it more difficult for me to take the leap into going full-time with my business. Now, both paths, corporate and entrepreneurship, while they have their differences, are not a guarantee, of course. But it comes down to figuring out what you want your days to look like, what type of work you want to do, and whether you want to be managed or you want to manage, or how you want to be managed, essentially. Now, let's fast forward a month because it didn't take much to have another situation thrown at me this year. Life decided to throw me another lemon, which still hasn't been quite made into lemonade, to be honest. But hopefully it's on its way. So my immediate family member suffered a relapse with their critical illness, the one from many years ago, that really created a huge burnout situation for me, unfortunately. It's been a challenging year to deal with this. However, it's still ongoing and I'm still dealing with it, but it's gotten a little bit better. But anyways, this immediate family member suffered a relapse with that critical illness that they suffered with many, many years ago. Now, because of this, I had to take a major step back in my business to navigate the situation, and I struggled immensely emotionally to juggle the stress of this on top of everything else that was already happening. What I'm continuing to learn from this situation, because it is ongoing, is that boundaries are the absolute key to protecting your well-being. You can do your best to support loved ones, to be there for others, but you cannot do things, or you cannot let things take over your entire life. And what I mean by that is figuring out what I need to do in order to be able to support as best as I can, because I cannot pour from an empty cup. So I need to take care of me. I need to put in boundaries in place. I need to say no. I need to understand what my limitations are, and I need to enforce them so that I can be able to show up when I need to for those individuals. Now let's shift into business, because those were epically probably the most intense things that happened to me this year, and they lasted the entire year. So that's another story. So let's shift into business now. This was the most challenging year business-wise for me as well. So it felt as though everything that I was trying would flop. Attracting new clients became more challenging. I witnessed several businesses that I knew well sell, close, or withdraw from their previously successful businesses. I saw many entrepreneurs go back into corporate work due to uncertainty and being drained from that rat race that, many call it. It was a challenging year for many, and I learned this quite a bit through many people sharing their experiences. And it was quite a bit of a shock and kind of sad for me to see happen. And I know, of course, sad for them as well and their communities and whatnot, because they provided exceptional services and products and whatnot. But it at times made me stop and wonder about my own path and why I was struggling so much. And I began feeling this icky feeling of gripping so hard on the outcome that I wanted that everything started to feel forced and sort of desperate. I wondered at many points if it was me, like if I was the problem, because I had tried so many things. I hired support, but nothing seemed to work. And what the common factor was me. So of course, I'm going to start thinking it's me and having that constant worry of what these other businesses that I thought were so successful were going through, and now either selling or closing their business or going back to corporate. It triggered a lot of fears in me because I saw them at this certain level. And I'm like, well, if they're struggling and I'm already struggling and I'm trying to get to their level, what does that say for me? Now, what a story I was telling myself. So thankfully, I was able to reason myself out of this thinking with the help of RRT and speaking to other entrepreneurs as well. As much as you can be aware of the entrepreneurial pitfalls or lows, you can forget about them when you are in the thick of it. So I full on knew that business is a roller coaster ride at times, and business can fluctuate. People can come and go, like it's an ever-changing landscape. But I seemed to forget about this in the thick of it. This low didn't need to say anything about me as a person, as a business owner. It was just another opportunity for me to go inwards to strengthen certain mental and emotional muscles that were weak. The ebbs and flows don't need to mean anything about you as a person, as a human being. The lackluster metrics, stats, revenue don't need to mean anything about you. It's just an opportunity to reflect and possibly pivot or adjust. Now, as much as I was aware of how important the inner work is in business, I've always said the entrepreneurial journey is more akin to a self-development one, essentially. I forgot about this and focused so much more on strategy and execution because I was in that desperate state for some reason. And this happens so often as business owners. We can get so caught up in the doing and wander away from the work that actually helps us show up as our best selves in business and be able to make strategic decisions from a clear mind. So something I learned from a past podcast guest, Laura Larios, is that you will show up in the state of your nervous system. And your nervous system is essentially everything. And mine at this point was shot to hell with everything that I was navigating. So back on the journey, I had to go back to square one, essentially. And that was a little bit frustrating because I was like, I already know all this stuff. I've done all this stuff. And yes, it worked. Why did I stop doing it? Like, why did I shift all of my focus onto strategy and execution and whatnot and forget doing all of the work that actually helped me show up as a better business owner and make better decisions and do it from a calmer state and whatnot? It's just so interesting, so funny looking back. I had stopped everything that I was doing that served me because it was working so well. And this is something my past boss used to say to the sales team, and it made me laugh when I realized it's because I had done it despite being previously aware of this trap. So I was already aware that a lot of people fall to this where everything's going well and they're doing all those things and then they stop doing them, and of course everything falls apart. And I knew this because I had experienced it. I saw it happen in corporate and whatnot, and was reminded of this by my boss for the sales team. And I hadn't done it myself. It's so interesting how you can be aware of so many things, yet you can still fall down and have to pick yourself up again. Now, another lesson I learned in business is that no one can guarantee your success in your business but you. Now, you can hire all the goddamn coaches, the contractors and such, but it is in your hands to do the work, to show up, to nurture and build your community, and so on. I think we are a lot of the time we're looking for that quick fix, the magic wand, or the fairy godmother that has that exceptional service or product that they are selling exceptionally well, that really speaks to you, that is going to be the thing that takes your business to the next level or solves the issue that you're having. While yes, they can help, you are the magic wand. You're in control of your business and the outcomes that will result. You need to put in that consistent work, show up consistently, work on your self-development, have fun, and create more harmony between work and life and watch things unfold. It might not be overnight, and I mostly guarantee that it won't be overnight, but it all adds up and eventually you will see the results you are working towards. I have put so much weight this past year and a half, almost 2 years, into other people's support, and I've realized that I'm actually in the driver's seat and I'm the one that will drive this over the finish line. Yes, I can have their support. However, it's in my hands what the results are going to be. Now, despite growing this business since 2017, there was one key thing that I had neglected in doing or focusing on that was building community, online and offline. I still am very much an introvert. I like being behind the computer screen at home doing my thing. And this wasn't really a priority for me until it became glaringly apparent that this is everything in building a thriving business. Your community is everything. And when I say community, I don't just mean your followers on Instagram or TikTok. Yes, of course, it's part of it, creating strong relationships with those that follow you and nurturing them, but it also means creating relationships with other entrepreneurs online and offline, having coffee dates, going beyond the business conversations, creating genuine connections, going to events, supporting others, sending a DM to check in, sharing other people's names in rooms that they aren't in. The list goes on and on. This is my lesson this year and my focus moving forwards into 2024 and beyond. And this last lesson before we dive into the accomplishments and then preparing for 2024 is I have gotten stuck in the cycle of being nervous, I guess you would call it that, of speaking up or sharing my opinions or how I do things because I was worried of being called out for some reason because I was doing or saying something wrong that goes against how others are doing it. Yes, I am fully aware that this is total BS thinking. Yes, I have learned this many times through so many conversations with other entrepreneurs, offline, on the podcast, you name it. But no matter what you think you know, you can still stumble with things. Our brains are so interesting that way. This year, I became obsessed with marketing. So this is an example of what I mean by this. Of course, strategy mode, I became obsessed with marketing in order to generate new leads and build my community, etc. And I was drinking from that goddamn fire hose, trying to learn as much as I can. Now, what I did learn is that there is no magic wand. There's no secret strategy that will catapult a business. Everyone has their own take or their own opinion, and this is how they are differentiating themselves in the industry. So I saw so many accounts saying, this is what you need in order to get X. Do these 3 things to get X. You won't succeed if you don't do this. And the list goes on and on. Change your bio, do all reels, include carousel posts, post at these times, add hashtags to text on reels and hide it to the side. Don't worry about hashtags. You need to use all 30 hashtags. This is how the algorithm works, blah, 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 blah. What works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for another. You need to try things out, be consistent, track your metrics, and analyze the results and adjust as necessary. Your community, your business is unique to you, and you need to figure out what works best for that. So bringing it back to my struggle, I realized that I didn't need to worry about being called out. If someone does, so be it. That's totally fine. I can share openly what my thoughts are with regards to my expertise, my opinions, how I feel something should be done, how I do things, and how I support my clients. And those that resonate with it will be attracted to my business, and those that don't, won't, which is fine because they are not my people. So the point is, stop searching for the only right way of doing something. There is no such thing. Everybody can do a variation of everything, do it their way, and it can all work. It can all not work, but you just adjust and pivot. Okay, last lesson. Don't jump the gun with hiring. This year, I almost did, again, because I exceeded my bandwidth and love for doing some things in my business related to the podcast, because it does take a lot of time to produce a podcast. Yes, at a point, you will need to hire and you will need to delegate in order to scale your business, but be strategic with this step. Explore your options, set yourself up to experience success if you are taking this next step. What I feel and am proud of that I think I did right in this situation was exploring my options. I reviewed and refined my process. I explored tech and implemented 3 AI tools that have actually resolved the issue that I was having at a reduced cost, because experts, let's be honest, are not cheap. I am able to utilize AI to save me hours of work and mental bandwidth each week. Now, I'm not going against hiring someone, of course, but I just want to point out that before you hire, you need to have a process in place. You need to implement tech in order to support that process and to streamline and optimize it. You need to utilize AI in order to automate tasks and eliminate paying someone to do something that could be automated. The AI tech I implemented was, of course, ChatGPT. She's my best friend when it comes to content creation. Cast Magic, which helps create all of the content that I need for my podcast, and Opus Clips, which creates all the video clips that I need for marketing my podcast episodes. So let's jump into some accomplishments this year. So number 1 is tying the knot. That has been the best decision I've made in my life, to be honest. I'm not going to gush too much here because that is not what we're focusing on. It was a very big jump, a very quick big jump that we made. And honestly, I'm more than happy about it. And we did it our own way. It's an interesting story that I might share on a different episode. But we definitely went against all of the norms and the traditions, and we absolutely did it our way. And it's quite interesting. But anyways, so that was a huge accomplishment. I had a lot of fears going into that. Commitment long-term is not one of my things just because of past trauma and whatnot. But I was able to navigate that and take this big jump relatively fearlessly. And yeah, I'm very much happy with that decision. The next one is going full-time with the business. And although it did not happen the way that I had it planned, the universe dropped a major gift in my lap, essentially on the same day that I was planning to put in my resignation. So it worked out better than I could have even imagined, although it was quite a shift that I needed to navigate, because I've always had corporate job and the structure and all that type of stuff, and just now being in charge of my own schedule and like managing my own work and like doing it full time, and it's no longer something I'm doing part-time type thing. It took me a little bit of time to adjust to, and I feel like I'm finally in a good place with it. And other accomplishments, honestly, was just continuing my business. You have no idea how many times this year I was ready to just drop it and to move on. Seeing a lot of other people doing it, just experiencing all of the lows this year, I just kind of fell out of love with the business, to be honest. Had a lot of resentment towards it, but doing all of this inner work, I really feel like I've been able to come out with a different perspective, and I'm really excited going into 2024 and seeing what happens, and just not being tied to any specific outcome, just enjoying the process. I think I've been solely focused on just getting to this end result, and then as soon as you get there, you just bypass it and you're like, next. But really just focusing more so on the everyday and all of the little wins and everything that is happening in between, I think has really helped me gain better perspective and just be in a better place with my business. Now, I'm just highlighting those two things because they were epically fantastic. And overshadowed anything else, honestly, that happened this year. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Now, let's shift gears into preparing for 2024. Now, this is overwhelming for so many because, again, everybody has an opinion, which of course they are sharing on how to best prepare for 2024. Set your goals. No, don't use goals. Use intentions. Create a list of goals. No, only focus on 3. Goal setting is calendar year based only. It goes January to December. And again, the list goes on with how you should be doing it and what is right and what is wrong. Honestly, forget about what everybody else is doing. Figure out what works best for you. Is it planning your year in December? Or maybe going according to your birthday, so like your 39th year, this is what you're going to accomplish? Is it solely reflecting on your past lessons and accomplishments? Do you want a detailed plan that breaks out your goals into actionable steps per month, per week? Do you want to solely keep your goals high level and have more of a flowy approach to them? Everyone works differently, and the only time that goals will be achieved is when you figure out how you work best. For me, and this is solely what I do, it is through self-reflection from an energy and a strategic perspective. Then I review my metrics compared to my past goals and determine if I can, because sometimes you have no idea why something happened or didn't happen, figure out why something worked or didn't work. I then reflect on my North Star, so my big vision for my life, and what I can do in 1 year to bring me a little bit closer to it. Now, I only focus on 3 major aspects of my life, and I set 3 big goals for that year. So here are my goals for 2024. So number 1 is to further elevate my service and delivery to continue to exceed my clients' expectations, resulting in higher referral rates, which mine are already pretty high, but of course I want to continue to increase them. And implementing additional tools, processes, automations to increase profit per service and create more time freedom in my life. 2, I want to build an engaged community or family. I like to call it family as well because they are essentially like family when they are following you and learning more about you, by increasing the value output through in-person events, masterclasses, office hours, and my podcast. 3 is personal development focus. So focus on who my higher self is and show up as her more consistently, continue developing my emotional intelligence and regulating my nervous system, and creating meaningful relationships with like-minded individuals while having more fun. So then I make a list of how I can achieve those things. What are the actions, the little actions that I can take to make those happen? So I create a list of those actions that will help me achieve those goals, and that is the list that I draw from when planning my quarters. So each quarter or month may have a different focus based on where I'm at and what I or my business needs. But the focus will always be in line with getting me closer to achieving those 3 goals. I then also create my non-negotiables list for daily actions that absolutely have to be done. So this is, of course, example showing up on Instagram stories. That is a non-negotiable. Doing my morning ritual. That is a non-negotiable. Movement, non-negotiable. Taking supplements, non-negotiable. Now, this is, of course, really high level and is only what works best for me. I could go into more detail into how I determine the list of actions and what tool I use to track, but I'm keeping it super simple today. Again, pull from others for inspiration and try things out to see what works best for you and what helps you actually achieve those goals, because that's the goal, right? Is essentially to get you to achieve those goals. So however that's going to happen, that's how you should be doing it. Now, I'd love to share a few trends that I see emerging in 2024, things that I know I will be focused on myself as well. So number 1 is simplification. Simplify your business, simplify your processes, your tech stack, your offers, your team. Overcomplication leads to confusion, which leads to counterproductive outcomes. You don't need a million offers. This leads to confusion for your community when they're looking to buy from you. I don't know on how many times, but I've gone to somebody's website because I resonated with their content. Went to their website and they literally have 20 different offers, and I have no idea what to choose from because they're all relatively similar but slightly spinned a different way. And I'm like, it's just overwhelm, right? Mental overwhelm, and I move on. Also, you don't need all of the tech tools out there. Be strategic and utilize tools that effectively support your processes. You also don't need a huge team to experience high levels of success. Small, lean teams built strategically are the most effective. Number 2 is AI. Implement it, utilize it. It is a true game changer. If you don't adapt to change, that is actually beneficial for your business and time freedom. You will be left behind. Number 3, in-person events are back and increasingly on the rise. The days of all Zoom calls are gone. Get out in your community, meet people face to face, go to networking events, set up coffee dates, create your own events. This is a huge thing that I am seeing getting bigger and bigger. There are so many people now creating those in-person events, and there's something about being in the room with people that is just absolutely game-changing, rather than just connecting with people online in a group setting where you're not really creating those relationships. You're not really getting to know each other. So I highly recommend that you either get out there and get involved in those types of environments, or create your own if you can't find one that you resonate with. And that is exactly what I'm doing. I've been on the search for something that I was looking for, that I want to be a part of, and I can't find it out there. So I'm launching it in 2024. Now, a couple of updates for the podcast moving into 2024. I'm going to be resuming our original podcast release schedule after reviewing the metrics following the change that I made this past quarter. So new guest episodes will be released every Thursday morning, and I will then also be releasing a Self Saturdays solo episode again every Saturday morning. Now again, sometimes pivots need to be readjusted. You can try things and test or A/B test and see what works and what doesn't work. And then sometimes you need to go back to the original. And that is what I'm doing. I've noticed that the podcast metrics have gone down significantly since making this change. And that is just not okay with me. So we are moving back to Thursdays. So this wraps up our end of year review episode. I'd love to hear from you and learn about your lessons from 2023 or what you're focusing on in 2024. So I'd love for you to send me a DM on Instagram and let's chat. So before we sign off, make sure to subscribe for more episodes packed with actionable advice and cutting-edge strategies designed to arm you with the tools that you need to succeed. So that's a wrap for today. Until next time, loves. Thank you for joining us today. Your presence truly elevates Love Unplugged into a home for freedom-driven women who aspire to be visionary CEOs. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd be honored if you take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us bring more impactful conversations to our community. Let's continue to grow this empowering community together. Until next time.